Brexit has had a significant impact on the financial sectors in both the UK and the EU, and the UK's departure from the single market and the customs union has resulted in increased costs, complexity, and even uncertainty for financial institutions. So let's have a look at the impacts. First, the impact on the UK financial sector. There was, for example, the loss of passporting rights. UK-based financial institutions can no longer passport their services to the EU, which means they must set up subsidiaries or branches in each EU member state in order to operate there. And this has added to the costs and complexity of doing business for UK financial firms. That was the first issue here. But there are also increased regulatory costs. The UK government has introduced new regulatory requirements for financial services firms, which has added to their costs. And these requirements aim to ensure that the UK financial sector remains competitive and stable in their view. And there's reducing FDI. Brexit has led to a decline in foreign direct investment, that is FDI, in the UK financial sector. This is because many international firms are quite reluctant to invest in the UK due to the increased uncertainty and complexity of doing business there. But we also had a shifting of jobs to the EU. Some UK-based financial institutions have relocated jobs to the EU in order to maintain access to the single market. And this has led to some job losses in the UK financial sector. But of course, there was also an impact on the EU financial sector. And let's start with increased competition. The loss of UK-based financial firms from the EU market has created opportunities for EU firms to expand their business. However, this has also increased competition and put downward pressure on some prices. And there's the regulatory divergence. The UK and the EU have different regulatory regimes for financial services, and this could lead to regulatory arbitrage, where firms exploit the differences in rule to gain an unfair advantage. And there is a reduced access to talent now. The UK was indeed a major source of talent for the EU financial sector, and Brexit has made it more difficult for EU firms to access UK talent. But that's not all. There's also increased compliance costs. EU firms that do business with UK firms will have to comply with new rules and regulations in the future, and this will indeed increase their compliance costs. And this means that overall, Brexit has had a mixed impact on the financial sector in both the UK and the EU. The UK financial sector has faced increased costs and complexity, while the EU financial sector has faced increased competition and regulatory divergence. It is now too early to say what the long-term impact of Brexit will be on the financial sectors of both countries, or the country and the Union. In addition to that, there are some other areas where Brexit has had an impact on the financial sectors, not only the ones I was talking about, where I could make a direct comparison. The UK was a major center for investment banking, for example, but Brexit has led to a decline in this activity, and this is because many international firms have moved their investment banking operations to the EU now. And also in the asset management. The UK is a major center for asset management, but Brexit has created uncertainty for asset managers operating in the UK. This is because they are now subject to different regulatory regimes in the UK and the EU. And if they want to do business in the EU, the UK is not the best place to be anymore. And of course, insurance. The UK is a major center for insurance, but Brexit has led to increased costs and complexity for insurers operating in the UK. And this is because they now have to comply with both UK and EU regulations. And that's why there's still some movement going on. And as he flies to New York on Friday to convince Wall Street firms to invest in Paris, French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire is working to make them feel at home. The French government is working on measures to make Paris more appealing as a financial hub. The package, planned for the first half of next year and aimed at attracting more bankers displaced by Brexit, would seek to simplify France's legal and fiscal framework, often perceived as an obstacle for the financial sector. A French economy ministry official on Thursday confirmed Le Maire will go further with reforms and is going on a legislative or regulatory initiative for 2024. In New York, Le Maire was fishing for ideas at meetings with finance heavyweights, including Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, or Global Infrastructure Partners. He wanted to take the pulse and listen to the expectation of the banking and financial sector, the way in which they perceive Paris, and the type of measures that could be adopted next year, as the official said. The plan, first reported by Bloomberg, by the way, could include measures ranging from tweaks to labor laws to facilitating the listing on the stock market of small and medium-sized enterprises, according to a government official not authorized to speak publicly. The project is still at an early stage, but two officials with direct knowledge of the file say measures could be inspired by a report presented this week by Charles Rodwell, a lawmaker from Macron's party. Among proposals to convince foreign businesses to expand in France, the Franco-British MP suggested easing labor laws, something particularly interesting for financial firms which want to fire and hire more easily. Macron's government already made France more finance-friendly since the UK left the EU in January 2020, for example with fiscal benefits and tweaks to France's famously rigid labor law. Rodwell wants to go further by making it easier and less costly to fire high-income employees. One option is to ease rules on severance payments companies have to pay in case of layoffs. The reform would only affect layoffs of top earners, and those typically are those with a salary of around 500,000 euros per year. The move is targeting more specifically asset management firms. It's a highly fluctuating business with highs and lows in terms of recruitment. The rigidity of our labor market isn't necessarily fit for these types of jobs, is what Rodwell said. The measure would be in line with Le Maire's goal to attract financial actors other than banks like private equity funds and sovereign funds. Other measures suggested by the report include easing rules for capital increases and creating a mechanism to put non-listed companies in contact with potential investors to encourage them to enter the stock market. And France could also create the role of ambassador for France's financial attractivity, similar to the already existing position of ambassador for international investments held by former Apple executive Pascal Yanni. Since 2016, former Bank of France Governor Christian Noyer has led a task force to promote Paris's appeal as a financial center, and last year Le Maire extended his mission until June 2024. And Noyer said that thinking on further measures was still at an early stage and that no major overhaul should be expected. The government tries to send a positive message. That was said by Alexandre Holroyd, another MP from Macron's party who worked on the consequences of Brexit. Paris has already won the match against Frankfurt, Amsterdam and Milan, he said, while acknowledging that some little things can always be improved. The French strategy already bore fruits. The Paris region gained around 2,800 finance jobs thanks to Brexit between 2016 and 2022, doing better than Frankfurt according to a 2022 study by the consultancy EY. And Macron himself, a former investment banker, puts his face to these efforts. For example, he personally inaugurated JP Morgan's new offices in Paris' iconic Place Vendôme in 2021. In parallel, Paris is competing with other EU cities to host the EU's new anti-money laundering watchdog in a bid to top the list of EU financial institutions already based in Paris, like ESMA and the EBA. Thanks to major tax and labor law reforms, as well as the concentration of talent and quality of life that Paris offers, we are neck and neck with London. But we can't stop there, said Rodwell. Although I think Paris is like London far more dirty than we Germans know. The government has not yet made its mind up on whether to adopt new measures in a new dedicated text or as part of a broader law already in the works for the simplification of French economy, according to people with direct knowledge of the file. But there's a lot of promises going on, and we will see what's in there in the end. But of course, they will try to take a benefit out of Brexit. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here on the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.